outstanding. It's the ultimate accolade for teachers. We challenge primary teacher Steve Kubersing to go from good to outstanding. A top inspector observes one lesson. 2 experts fine-tune his practice and beef up his presentation. He then gets 2 weeks to take on the advice before the inspector comes back for the final verdict.
I don't think it's easy to become outstanding because I don't think anything's easy. I think everything you want you have to work for.
Springwell Juniors is a 2-form entry school in West London, located under the main flight path of Heathrow Airport. Steve Kubersing is in his 2nd year of teaching at Springwell.
OK, you're going to show him you got the skills?
To pay the bills!
Right.
The school rates his teaching as good.
Give me a number.
20.
25. Let's go.
10. 20.
One of the challenges for me is to just not get complacent and keep moving on with it and keep getting better and better. I am so fortunate to have children who just love learning.
100, 200, 300, 400.
When you've got them engaged, learning is taking place. They're stimulated and they want to go with it.
At the beginning of the year, Mr. Kubersing said, "Who thinks maths is boring?" And I put my hand up. Now I've understood now it's like really fun the way we do maths.
What makes a good lesson is he doesn't just write it down on the board. He tells us what to do and then we can do it in a fun way.
Aside from the stresses and strains of end-of-term activities and a pile of reports still to write, Steve rustles up a Kubersing special.
About the observation next week, I most probably feel a little bit apprehensive because I think having anyone in your classroom, you always feel like you're on the spot a bit. Be interesting to see what they come back with, but I just really want to keep it the way it is. If I change anything, it's not going to be right.
It's the morning of the first observation with the inspector.
It's a Friday morning as well, which isn't the best time for an observation, but let's see how we go. I think once we get going, it flows, it will be fine, I think.
With hundreds of inspections under her belt, School Inspector Claire Gillies leads inspection teams up and down the country. She certainly knows an outstanding lesson when she sees one.
I'm here to observe Steve teaching Year 3 numeracy. He's had this class nearly for the whole year now.
What will she make of Steve's Year 3 maths lesson? He's got 60 minutes to impress her.
6. Lots of 3.
6! Lots of 3 equals...
An accepted understanding of outstanding compared to good is that all pupils in a class have made at least the amount of progress you would expect in a lesson.
Are you going to take that?
No!
Inverse.
18 divided by 3.
One ingredient of an outstanding lesson is when the pupils are clearly completely absorbed and almost have a rapport with the teacher where they're studying together, they're learning together.
Ooh, look at you! Now, I need to find the location of the parrot. Shivestava, please. Come on down.
First we went like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, no, 6. And
6.
We went counted upwards, which was 7, and then we came up with 6-7.
So we've got 6 and 7. That's interesting.
It's G7.
Ah. Tell me what you mean. Come on down, please.
I counted A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it'll be G7.
So you said G7. Can you now give me the coordinates of this parrot again? using numbers and alphabet. You're going to sit back to back and you're going to plot coordinates. Remember, alphabet horizontally on the x-axis and the numbers on the y-axis, okay? Right. Are you recording?
I mean, like she's doing shapes.
No, you do exactly the same. It's supposed to be like a mirror. So, for example, now draw a square in D6. Right, so you sat back to back. You weren't cheating. No. You didn't look at each other. No. Ooh, look at them. Excellent. They do look the same, don't they?
We had to shade in a square and we had to tell each other what to do, and then that's how I understood.
Right, we're going to be human coordinates. Do you think you can do that?
Yes!
Let's go. So, I want you to stand along that line horizontally, please. You are the x-axis. What are you guys going to be? Or some of you are going to be? Come here, coordinates. Come here, come here. Issam, you are going to go to spot C5. A, B, C, and... So, are you standing? Yeah, Gloria? Front of Gloria? Right. G10. Okay, and finally, D7. Well done. Come on, what are we waiting for? So, have a go at finding E3. Now, it's very difficult to see here. Who can have a go at finding E3 for me? Sarah? F1. Okay, let's see if she's right. Excellent. Right, A3. Mimi? F5. Okay, let's see if he's right. Well done.
So how did Steve get on?
Steve, thank you very much for letting me watch that lesson. I enjoyed it so much.
Good,
as did all the children. And that's the great thing, because I think it's clear that your generic teaching skills are just wonderful and you just make everything fun, but we're learning at the same time.
Yeah, thank you.
And there were just a few little points. We did have a bit of letter and number confusion,
Yes.
if we're honest. I wonder if we should have had a bold decision that we were going to be completely, for all of them, to start with letters and numbers and not get into numbers and numbers. Because I just wonder whether that's left a little tiny confusion for some of them. I think about half of them, and you picked this up, were a bit confused. Having not understood the instruction whatsoever of sit with your back and make sure you have the same. It was sort of the table nearest the front of the class that was the more confused table, I think. Maybe a little more subtle pairing might have actually got them all, because I felt a good half had really got it. The others weren't quite so clear. And then, of course, this lovely, brilliant idea of rushing outside and being coordinates.
Yeah.
In the sense of making it fun, reinforcing in a different way. Wonderful. It's a little but.
It's a bit risky, yeah.
So what did you think, if you were doing that little bit of the lesson again, how would you make it just that little bit more effective?
What I would do is actually I would give them letters and numbers to hold.
Yes,
and it would make it a lot easier. We can develop this in another lesson. They would have numbers and letters.
Just a thought. Brilliant to come back to the rabbits going to the cinema again, because that's really good context. Yeah. But it would have just perhaps the real life element of why on earth are we interested in these coordinates?
Yeah,
it's the old
really
relevance
important.
context, so that they can see the meaning of it. And then some of them might have gone home and got a map out, one of the sort of map lying around in the car or something, and said, we would,
The first observation is behind him. The inspector highlighted Steve's need for context and greater clarity of intention. Now it's time to bring on the experts. To boost Steve's progress, help comes from communications coach Roger Terry and primary maths expert Darren Elsom. They start by watching Steve's lesson.
So what I'd like to talk with Steve about is, certainly getting his head around the learning journey. Where does this lesson fit in within a longer teaching sequence? But also I'd like to talk to him about modelling and demonstrating a bit more. I'd like to see more of him actually showing himself as the expert learner, the expert mathematician.
He's got a great rapport with the children.
Oh, fantastic
in terms of engaging them. Teachers can get so enthusiastic at being at the child's level that they kind of have to make that step back to being the teacher every so often and make that distinction.
Well, welcome, Steve.
So I thought one of the things we do straight off is work a little bit with the physiology to give you some sense of how you might become a bit stiller in the classroom, to get some stillness. As when we're still, we can command attention, especially when we want to create focus on you. Okay, so Steve, what I'm going to do is just going to give you a shove and just notice how oh, that's good. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is just put your hand over your belly button. I'm pushing you about 3 times as hard now. And how does that feel?
Yeah,
solid. So
yes, solid.
Standing up in front of the class with that solid, centred feeling puts you in charge, gives you quite a bit of presence. One of the other things I'm going to do is just help loosen your body up and help that voice resonance. And I'm going to get you to stand on this balance board. We're building you a new voice, a command voice for you to use quietly but with power. Think about how you might emphasise the things that you want them to do.
Now I'd like you all to put your books in the middle of the table, line up, quietly please.
You can get off the balance
Oh,
board
can
now.
I?
Yeah, you can.
I
Unless
like
you
being this
like being that height. So a little bit of practice with that, you start to be able to pace the class in a way that is a little bit more sophisticated in the way you've been doing it.
They said if I counted 7 up.
One of the things that we're looking at today is moving from good to outstanding, because actually the criteria for that's quite woolly. It's basically good with knobs on.
Right.
Yeah, it's good all of the time,
Yeah.
plus more. Just have a look at this, see what you think.
First we went like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we came up with 6-7.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
What was your thought then when he came up and basically blew the lesson out of the water?
I was quite pleased that he kind of got the concept of what we were going with, but I knew that he would, but there'd be plenty of others that still needed to go over that.
To make it outstanding, all children's learning has to move forward.
Yeah.
That's what firms it up from
Yeah.
being good to outstanding.
Yeah.
And one of the ideas with that is knowing in your mind's eye the longer learning journey of this unit. Right, so for me, I think it's starting off with assess and review.
Yeah. So what you're saying is take the first lesson and just basically elicit their knowledge and
Absolutely,
where
absolutely.
they're at.
Absolutely.
That informs
Because
your
that
planning. Yeah.
then gives you
Yeah.
the starting
Yeah.
point. And the next bit is not the lessons in between. You start thinking about where you want the children to be, the
And working
outcomes.
back, yeah.
The outcomes are about what you want the children to be able
Yeah.
to say yes to at the end.
Yes.
I can do this,
Yeah.
I know that, I understand this.
Yeah.
What we say in the lesson is we show these all the time at
Right.
the beginning of the lesson. This is where we're working towards. Oh, we can do that already. This
Yeah.
is the next step.
Yeah.
And then for the lesson, you'd say, and this is the bit we're looking at today. So what it's doing is it's putting today's lesson within the context of the longer learning journey.
Okay.
So that's almost like the finishing line,
Yeah.
and only then can you start thinking about the steps in learning. Now, these aren't lessons, they're milestones in the children's
Yeah.
learning towards that finishing line.
Yeah.
So if you've got the bigger picture
Yeah.
and you've planned it through, with that kid, you would have known that you've got something up your sleeve because you'd have already thought about it. Now, the inspector talked about rooting your lessons within a meaningful context, within a real-life context, and I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely vital.
Yeah.
And what I try to do is to root the learning within the real world,
Yeah.
take it to the maths world, and that's where you can do all of your games and your teaching
Yeah.
and your learning, and then I have to bring it back to the real world again. You could start off by saying, has anybody seen a map? Have you used a map? Yeah?
Yeah.
So actually rooting it into a meaningful context. And then you could take the learning out into the maths world and bringing it back down again into the real world.